The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting group. Access Fort Wayne is a department of the Allen County Public Library. If you or anyone you know might be interested in making a television show, please call 260-421-1250.
Hi, welcome to the Kachmann Mind, Body, Spirit Show. Today I have two wonderful guests here today, and this will be about preventing cancer. Sort of a big subject. I have with me Dr. Vanamala, who is a nutrition and cancer expert, originally from India, and now has been living in the United States for 23 years. Another guest here, William Steele, who himself will tell you a little bit about a cancer he developed in the skin, and he will give us a few words about it, but you'll notice that he's still looking good here. So, Dr. Vanamala, you originally are from another country, is that right?
Yes.
And did you see a lot of cancer there?
The cancer incidence in India is very low. But now, with the change in the lifestyle and diet, it is growing. Means incidence is increasing now.
Well, that's very interesting. What he's saying is, it used to be very low in India because they were mainly eating rice, which actually is a sugar product, but they were not eating any fast foods or anything else. And now, it's very prevalent. So let me go over the history of cancer a little bit. Some of this is hard to almost believe. It was recognized as far as 2,600 years before the birth of Christ. Yes. And it was noticed as breast cancer in mummies. They unearthed mummies. Most of the mummies didn't live very long because people had other things happening to them. Animals ate them, and the proper food wasn't available, and lifespans were short. So, but it was seen many years ago. So, cancer has been there since the beginning of time. Then Hippocrates talked about it 460 BC. The father of medicine, he called it Kakinos, crab, because cancer is like a crab. It sticks out. It's trying to spread. Then in the 2nd century, Galen talked about it. He called it onco, swelling, and that's where the word oncologist came from. I just want to give you a little bit of history, and eventually they defined some as benign. It just goes bigger and doesn't invade anything and can get quite large, incidentally. And then, so that's benign, and malignant, where it spreads all over the body and can kill you. So in the 2nd century, we started doing surgery for it. But we had no anesthesia, and surgery was very painful. It was radical, but a few, and didn't have the proper instruments, but a few people survived it. You know, a few lived. And then we developed the Halsted procedure, a radical operation for breast cancer at the Cleveland Clinic, and it was carried out for 50 years, but it was brutal surgery. It helped save some people, but disfigured a lot of them, but it was radical. In the 1970s, then we developed X-rays and CT scans and PET scans so we could detect it earlier. And cancer's a sugar feeder. Yeah, and that's how PET scans were used then and they're used today. Then we started radiating it to kill a few of the cancer cells, but the radiation itself also caused some cancer. So one way to prevent cancer, don't go radiated, but sometimes it saves your life, so you can go either way. Marie and Pierre Curie, around the turn of the 1890s, 1910 or so, they discovered what X-rays can do to you. So what is the causes of, what are the hallmarks of cancer? So cancer, it proliferates, it keeps on growing, and it can evade growth repressors, enzymes that could avoid the cell from dying. So cancer knows how to avoid things, and resisting cell death. Cancer cells just keep on multiplying, and they can avoid cell death. And they can also induce through enzymes angiogenesis, growing new blood vessels to help it spread. They need a blood supply, and cancer cells can do that. And they can activate invasion and spreading throughout the body. And so they can deregulate cellular energetics. They can affect the metabolism of the cell. And they can avoid, cancer cells can avoid immune destruction. That's your own defense. Your own Army, Navy, and Air Force comes in and kills the cancer cells, but cancer cells can resist that. So cancer grows. It's immortal. It moves to other parts of the body. And it uses the Warburg effect for energy. Warburg discovered that it takes 13 molecules of sugar to make 1 ATP. So cancer loves sugar. If you want to avoid cancer, you want to get rid of, for example, type 2 diabetes, which William readily admits to having, and you have some skin cancer. Is that right, Bill?
Yes, unfortunately.
He unfortunately, and so I'm working with him, and he wants to spread it out to the public, that I'm going to can teach him how to get rid of his type 2 diabetes, so there's not much sugar in the blood, and because even skin cancer can eventually spread and kill you. Turn into melanoma and spread all over the body. So skin cancer is one of the cancers that occur.
In India, the skin cancer incidence is low because melanin absorbs the UV light and stop the damage to the DNA. But when it comes to the melanin content, in Caucasian is very low. So essentially what happens is now the skin damage more like eating a rainbow of fruits and vegetables that protects the cells from damage is very important. So that eating a rainbow not only protects from the cancer, but also potentially can prevent type 2 diabetes also.
Yeah, John, it's interesting what he is saying. If you're a dark person, you have more melanin in your skin, and that you're much less likely to get skin cancer. That makes perfect sense.
But in some parts of India now, with the water quality, because when they indiscriminately use the pesticides or that is contaminated by arsenic, the combination of it, people are getting skin cancer in the neck and head area in some parts of India because of this arsenic and pesticide combination. So even though melanin is high, it can still a problem with other potential factors.
Like environmental caused cancers.
Yes.
Environmental causes of it. It's interesting. Incidentally, animals get cancer too. Cancer has been here since the beginning of time. Yes. And cats, dogs, they get cancer. Just like smoking can cause cancer. Smoking causes a great deal, about 20% of cancers from smoking. And also, it actually, since the nicotine goes to every cell in your body, it also increases 12 other cancers. The smoking doesn't just cause lung cancer. It can increase skin cancer. It can increase liver cancer, kidney cancer, for pancreatic cancer. So it's very important. That's a habit to stop. And that the animals, all animals can get cancer. I know of someone that had a lot of animals in the house, including some birds, and he was a smoker. He just couldn't help it. He smoked in the house. And then you have secondary smoke, which you need to pay attention to. If you're living in a house with somebody smoking, that his pets get cancer. Every pet that he had developed cancer. I remember one having a big lump right there. All the dogs died in 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And it is so addictive that he knew it, that he couldn't help it. And he died from cancer. In his office, they were smoking, and people absorbed secondary smoke. He died, and his vice president of his company died from it. So, and we still have 20% of the people smoking, especially children. And it's something that hardly anybody knows, but it's in many books. I've known it for years. They could only addict, the companies that made the cigarettes, they could only addict maybe 18% because that increases their business, okay? What they found out, if they took the tobacco leaf and soaked it in molasses, that would increase the sugar content 40%, and they could double the addiction rate, and they would make a lot more money. It's a true story. It's written up very well in Gary Taub's book, The Poison of Sugar, a book that he's a whole chapter on it. But before I read that, I knew that already. It just confirmed it. And the kids are, they're juuling, and they don't speak about it. There's sugar in those things they're doing. And originally, the nicotine, the history is the Europeans came over here and invaded this country, and the natives were snuffing a certain amount of cigarettes, and their death rate was very low. But they took the cigarettes, the nicotine, back to Europe, and Europe sent the viruses over here, smallpox, which essentially killed, like Haiti, the whole island.
Very unfortunate.
Yeah, we sent them cigarettes, but in London, in the 1700s, they had 2,000 cigarette shops. 2,000. So cancer was clearly picking up, and it came from this country, but the natives were not dying from it. And originally, when it came to Europe, people were snuffing. They were putting the nicotine between the thumb and the index finger, and they were getting cancers of the nose and the pharynx. And interesting story, don't smoke. And so what caused cancers? Viruses, being overweight, because cancer is a sugar feeder. Insulin is a growth factor, and it pushes sugar into the cell, for diabetics, but it also promotes growth. Anything promotes growth promotes cancer. Even vitamins, you might think, well, I got to take all these vitamins. I know some people take 20 vitamins every day, which is not necessary. They cause growth, they increase cancer.
Wow.
Yes. I mean, there are a few vitamins that you might need to take, but most of them, they increase. So type 2 diabetics have tremendous increase in the cancer rate because a lot of them, their blood sugar is elevated. And even if it's your own insulin, it's a growth factor, increases cancer. If they take your shots for diabetes, it increases growth. So diabetics have about a 50% higher chance of having cancer. So get rid of your diabetes, which I'm working on with Bill, which we're going to do. 2 months, you're not going to have diabetes. I'm going to put on the show and prove the point to you. And smoking, alcohol too. Asbestos they found, which was used for insulation, in airplanes, in cars, and in trucks, and clothing, has cancer associated with it. So eventually it was banned.
You know, alcohol, nicotine, and asbestos, they're very known carcinogens. But when it comes to the vitamins you talked about,
Yeah.
what would be a good example, and what type of cancer?
And vitamins will cause cancer that you may already have to grow. It'll more likely to spread, okay? But that one specific vitamin was the cause of it, that would be uncommon, but it would help the cancer that you have. And the reason it can affect almost any cell, every cell in your body, every person, every day produces some cancer cells. All of us. Our immunity destroys them. But if you're taking a lot of things that cause growth, like you get diabetes, you're taking a lot of vitamins, things that cause growth, you will interfere with that destruction of your own immunity of the cells every day. So cancer rates go up. Toxins from the outside that you might be exposed to at work, for example, or that you might inhale, increase cancer. So eventually we came to the genetic theory of cancer, and there was a huge industry. Millions of papers were published that they thought that, and the industry had a hold of it, the research community had a hold of it, and that was funded by the government and to prove that your genes promoted the cancer. They did discover a few, and they could develop one drug, and that one drug would kill the cancer. CML is a good example. Incidentally, the cancer that was caused by asbestos was called mesothelioma, and since then eventually it was banned, and the rate went way down. And so the genetic theory of cancer went on for a long period of time. It was tremendously funded, but then after discovering a cancer too, they found it was a lot of money spent, a lot of research money spent. People say, well, I got the answer for cancer. They get it on TV, but very little was accomplished. Then ahead of one of the government agencies decided that's enough. No more billions of dollars that we send to these companies for genetic research. And they hired physicists, people who had nothing to do with cancer. They hired physicists. They funded 12 organizations, $15 million each, and they started looking at cancer differently. And then we did make some progress. But as I mentioned, radiation increases cancer. I mean, there's something good about radiation, but also that tissue has been partially damaged. And if you have partially damaged tissue, that can develop cancer later on. So if you radiate this tumor, but some of the radiation kind of spreads out, other cancers or the same cancer can start where the radiation causes some cellular change. And then so viruses can cause cancer. Mosquitoes carry it around. So then viral infections of the liver, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, and especially the hepatitis B, there was much higher rates of cancer following that infection. And then cervical cancer, the human papillovirus, viruses were found in the cervix. And they found out through smears that there were a lot of viruses there, and that could be prevented through surgery, through protective mechanisms. And then the Helicobacter pylori virus in the stomach they thought it was all acid that was causing all the stomach cancer we were seeing. I mean, a tremendous amount and killed you quickly because it was caught late, but then they discovered that it was largely a viral infection. And in the 1930s, it was a common cause of death. And in Japan, they had a tremendous amount of stomach cancer because they had that bacteria in their stomach. Then they developed this somatic mutation theory, and everything was genetic, but then they come to find out that really wasn't the case. And cancer cells, they are mutations that are there, but in the end they found out, like breast cancer does have some genes, the BRCA2 gene, 1 and 2, that help prevent cancer, and they found out that if you have that gene, you have a maybe 5% chance of getting cancer. But they have found out if you watch what you eat, that you're eating a nutrient-dense diet and avoiding sugary foods and eating good fats, that gene does not express itself. So if you're carrying, they used to think that if you carried that gene, it was a death sentence. Well, it's not.
Right. I remember some women getting preventative mastectomies just because they had the gene and they were getting their breasts removed.
A very good point, and a very famous actress, had both her breasts removed and her ovaries removed to get the hormones, the genes out of her body.
Angelina Jolie.
Yes. Thank you for bringing it up. But still, if she had followed, which she probably ate pretty good with, maybe that wouldn't have happened. But then again, she increased her chances tremendously, and you notice she's still around.
That particular gene, 50 years back and now, when you look at it, same gene mutation if somebody had, their incidence of cancer was low at the time compared to now. Because of the changes in diet and lifestyle, we have a greater chance of getting breast cancer with that gene mutation than in the past because of the diet and the lifestyle change. That also points to seed and the soil hypothesis, where the soil is changing as our diet and lifestyle is changing. So those seeds of the mutation are finding a conducive environment for them to grow. So it's very important for us to understand that it's not the genetic mutation, but it is the soil that we are creating by changing the diet and lifestyle need to be taken into equation.
So that gene, in conjunction with environmental toxins or carcinogens, and what you're eating is your sugars, can trigger that gene to give.
That's correct, because even if you take the seed and throw it in the, on the sand or on the rock, even it had the potential to grow, it is not going to grow because it's not a conducive environment. But if you take the same soil and put it in a fertile ground, it is going to grow quickly.
Give it the fertilizer of sugar.
Exactly.
And it's an excellent explanation. Breast cancer is probably 80% because women are presenting a soil that cancer loves to grow in. And that instead of taking all the money like we do in this community, we have dinners and fundraisers, and we take all the money and we send it to Indianapolis for genetic research, when that's only causes 2 or 3 or 4% of the cancers. If we kept some of that money here and taught our patients how to get rid of your diabetes, how to exercise more, positive thinking, and here's an example, power of your mind. Yes, how you think, and I'll speak more about that in a little bit. I wrote a book about it. Has tremendous effect on, for example, I live in New York by the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I was reading that a doctor would take a cancer patient that he had with breast cancer to the museum, Metropolitan Museum of Art, and he did it once a month. Because the doctor took her there. That's the way he treated her. And they had a good lunch, a healthy lunch, teaching her about nutrition and cancer. And then they would walk around the museum. They would walk around the museum. And it was meant a lot to me because I remember because I lived right there. And to have her look at her favorite art. They would spend an hour once a month doing that, and the cancer never recurred. Then he wrote a book about it. And that wouldn't work for every case, but positive thinking. This book that is in front of you here, The Power of Healing Cancer with the Power of Your Mind. I encourage you to read it. Preventing cancer, and especially if you have cancer, because suppose you're diagnosed with cancer of the metastatic stage, you say, well, I'm going to die in 6 months. You know what the odds are? You will die in 6 months. But if you're a positive thinker and start doing some of the things that suggested, nutrition and exercise and positive thinking, that affects the neurotransmitters and hormones in your body, and even visualize that something is coming in and eating up your cancer cells. If you visualize that and think that, they have found through scientific studies that can just heal and sometimes even cures cancer. And I looked up all that literature, and it's in that book. So positive thinking is the big thing.
As part of my faith, I believe that there's power in the tongue, and what you speak, you can call into existence.
Yeah.
So if you're calling in, I'm dying of cancer, you're going to likely die of cancer. So I think there's power in prayer and faith, and the power of a hug. You have a loved one who hugs you. I think there's a lot of healing power in that as well.
Yeah, that's where in the book you see that there is a hope, that before that one faith and hope and love.
That's right.
So that 3 words on the book are very important 3 words, because that faith that I'm going to fight this cancer versus I'm going to die, as you said, the words matters.
Yeah, exactly. So positive thinking is very important. Just because cancer is spread all over your body, don't throw the towel in. Start reading about this, or start proper nutrition. Don't feed it with sugar. You can do something about it. The rate of cancer increases, incidentally, after age 45. So create a soil that the cancer can't grow in. And that would be to eat more of a good fat, low sugar, positive thinking, exercise. And chemotherapy has value, that, as I mentioned, there's a few cancers. But if you, for example, if you have cancer and you go to a chemotherapist, could be at the hospital, could be in a clinic, and they say, oh, this is the drug you got to take, be sure to ask, has this drug cured anybody? I recently took somebody to one of the hospitals, chemotherapists, and they were going to line them up to take this drug. He says, oh, we don't know if it's cured anybody. We're running a drug trial. and of course, what the drug company does, they gave the hospital a lot of money. They made a profit, and you're just an experiment.
The guinea pigs coming
that
in the front door.
goes on all the time. Ask them, has this cured nobody? But remember, there are a few drugs that cure something, and you got to take it. But there's a lot of them that have no positive history, and you should have the right to decide some other way.
I see that from 2000 to 2016, in 17 years, all the drugs combined that developed for cancer treatment, they increased 2.4 months. That's all what they do. And one drug was 6 months lifespan increase, but later on it was withdrawn because it was not as effective in other study. So essentially 2.4 months, what we get from 17 years of research on the drugs. Right. That's why seed and soil hypothesis, where you control your diet and lifestyle, is very critical, because you are changing the soil, and that's where our focus needs to be for the next generation. If we really want to fight cancer, we need to focus on the soil. we have focused enough and understood deeply about the seed. Now we need to change the soil.
The seed would be that your risk factors or genetic things you can't do anything about.
Yes.
But you can do something about what you're fertilizing it with.
Certain cancer smoking causes 30% of cancer, but nutrition causes about 37% of the cancers. Toxins at work can affect it. And remember, there are a few drugs, like certain breast cancer ones. Take the drug Herceptin, which has a certain gene of breast cancer that you can need to take that, and you can prevent the breast cancer. But 70% of breast cancers are not Herceptin, cannot be treated by Herceptin. So Genentech has also a drug, but when they did twin studies, who have the identical twins and non-identical twins, they then determined, and they were done in Sweden, Denmark, and Finland, and they found that a good 70% of cancers are related to the environment and not through your genes. So we were getting away from the gene theory, like breast cancer. We're sending it the money for genetic research, but we already know that probably 100 genes affect breast cancer growth. What are you going to do? Take 100 drugs? You'll die from the side effects. The cost would be per month a tremendous amount of money. The companies are making money, but you're not getting a lot of benefit. Cancer has been there since the beginning of time. Even the Hydra, which had only 3 cells, they found out it got cancer. Isn't that interesting?
It's very fascinating, because when it comes to drugs, you said 100 gene mutations, 100 drugs, versus when you are an apple a day keeps the doctor away. When you are talking about the fruit or vegetable, you are getting plethora of compounds, thousands of compounds that works on multiple pathways that promotes the cancer. They are stopping that cancer, but they are in a small concentration, so there is no side effect. At the same time, they can work synergistically, simultaneously on variety of different pathways that cancer cells using to survive. So that's why eating a rainbow is one of the best way to change the soil and fight the cancer.
Eat good fats in a rainbow of foods, because it has nutrients and vitamins that help fight the cancer. So colorectal cancer, breast cancer are highly dependent on what you consume. But there are other cancers, like pancreatic cancer is 90% based on the amount of sugar in your body. So the majority of pancreatic cancer patients are type 2 diabetics. So it's very important. Get rid of diabetes, type 2 diabetes, where the sugar levels are high in your blood. Also, the viruses that are killing, the coronaviruses and other viruses, including influenza, that are affecting the people. 90% of the deaths from those coronavirus, diabetics. So you can prevent and cure the cancer, and you can avoid the viral infections. Oh my God. Get healthy. You know what I mean?
I have a question, doctors.
Yes.
Now, I was just recently diagnosed with skin cancer. Thank God it's the basal cell, and you're advising me on dietary changes I need to make and things I need to do. I'm seeing Dr. Varula, by the way. She's local. Thank you for her identifying this. If you can name 3 things between the two of you, because in the interest of time, 3 things to absolutely eliminate from my diet, and 3 things I need to immediately add. What comes to mind?
Well, what comes to mind, number one, learn the difference. You can go into YouTube, Rudy Kachmann, and learn what good fats are and bad fats are, okay? Eat about 70% good fat diet, 20% protein, 20% protein, and the rest is vegetables and fruit. You need only a certain amount of nutrients. Good fats, if you're eating good fats, your insulin level drops, your blood sugar drops, your fat cells open up, form ketones, and you're now in ketone metabolism. you can reach the three meals a day, but if you want to speed it up, go into fasting. So I would eat 2 meals a day, like I do it. I no reason to, but I wake up in the morning, have a couple of cups of coffee, and I don't eat till noon, and eat again around 6 or 7. You don't have to be religious about it. Just generally follow it, and I weigh 132 pounds every day. I think I've reached my set point. You know what I mean? It's not 131, 133. You would think your body will increase or decrease your basic metabolic rate once you've been eating this way. So I think fasting is and I'm not talking about missing a day or 2 days, alternate days. I would, which is can work, you get used to it, but I say 16-8. Rudy's keto 16-8. 16 hours you don't eat, 8 hours you eat. And if you generally follow that, you will be living on ketones, and your brain loves them for energy. You feel very energetic, and the cancer rates will go down. And if you have it already, the cancer got nothing. They need 13 molecules of sugar to live into the Warburg effect, and they won't have anything to live on, and the cancer cells will die. The apoptosis, the cancer cells will die. So eating correctly, getting rid of your diabetes, positive thinking, taking a walk, talk to the birds like I did today, and we do every time you visit my house.
Yeah.
And they're speaking back, which reminds me, this talking about nature. This morning I with a friend, look out one of my windows, maybe it was 8 o'clock this morning, and out of the woods, right by the house, 20 feet, comes this wet little deer. He's still wet, and he starts dancing. I saw it today. He starts dancing, and we finally figured out. He probably looked down and said, "I got legs." He just came out of the uterus, and he's dancing. That was yesterday morning.
Yeah.
We saw him again today with the mother. So
that
connect
connection
with
with the
nature,
nature.
positive
Yeah.
thinking.
Yes. So essentially what I'm hearing Dr. Kachmann say is, number one is the connection with the nature. So if we don't connect our own body and mind, it is very difficult to connect with the nature. So life flows in the rhythms. So we have to develop a rhythm for the day, a rhythm for the life. That is life promoting, not life diminishing. So that's where we focus on the food, we focus on the sleep, right. We focus on that awareness, that preciousness of the life itself, because there is no amount of money we can pay to get back the life. So in essence, it's a priceless gift.
Right.
So when we understand that, then we develop the rhythms of life where the food, sleep, exercise can come together to change the soil so that the seeds cannot grow.
Yes, beautiful explanation. This is kind of life that we would recommend. You avoid all the disease, you connect to the animals. I notice when I walk around my pond and back, the birds start singing to me. You walk
Yes.
with me, you have seen it.
Yes,
you
I
have
have
seen
seen
it, the
that.
red-winged blackbirds sing to us.
Maybe you feed them so much, they connect with you.
It could be, but it's awfully funny when you came with your 2 Indian doctors a few weeks ago. We were standing in the parking lot. My wife was there, 3 Indian doctors were there, and I was there. And the geese who I feed, I love the geese. 25 of them come and eat out of my bird feeder, and you saw it.
Yes.
You took a picture of it. You
Yes.
got to give that to me on my phone.
Yes.
The geese start lining up one behind the other, and did figure of 8s in my pond. You saw it.
Yes.
How do you explain that?
That's
One behind the other, just
Yes.
going around, figure 8s. They did it 3 times.
It's the way of demonstrating happiness and gratitude to you.
Yes, for feeding and taking care of them, and that's what
I
I
agree.
mean.
Absolutely.
When you care about life around you, when the life responds to you, in that connection comes joy, and that's why connection is heaven, and disconnection is hell.
I like that.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love
think
that. That's the title of a book there.
Yes, it is, and I think it's a beautiful explanation. So cancer's been there since the origins of life. Yeah, it's been there forever. and it doesn't like to grow in cells. The cells are all the same, the energies, and they are the same. So if we can get the sugar out of the cell, it doesn't have the energy to multiply. They'll just die, they'll have apoptosis. And so the biggest risk factor in cancer is being overweight. Obesity is the biggest risk factor.
Right here. You can put the cameras right here.
So
I was in a bad situation. I actually was incarcerated, horrible diet, eating nothing but starches and soups, and I gained over 100 pounds. When I got released, I have cancer, I have heart trouble, I have a reality show with 11 million views, and huge success, but my health is deteriorating. So I'm so grateful to have met Dr. Rudy Kachmann. And we're going to straighten this mess out that I have going on right here.
And in a few months, he'll be sitting here. No more diabetes, skin cancer, cannot find energy to grow. So we 1/3 of cancers are due to us eating the wrong food. Some is due to stress, some is due to toxin. And to remember that our body produces some cancer cells in all of us every day. I do, but my immune cells attack it. But I keep my immune buddies, my monocytes and phages. I keep them happy by eating the right food. So the origin of cancer is already in our body. So we can't keep on feeding it to give it energy. They actually, so it's partly dependent on your body mass index, how much that you weigh. So if your BMI is, as height and weight is over 30, cancer rates go up about 30%. You start reaching 40, cancer rates go up 88%. So we're not critical, but looking at you that you're overweight, but I'm trying to get you healthy. And the quickest way really is the keto way, which I've been speaking about, is to eat two meals a day. Even if you just ate one of the two, are healthy by avoiding sugar, say eating some eggs and guacamole, for example. And I think some beans, limited amount of beans would be reasonable. Weight would fall off you. Cancers caused from obesity are also dementia, Alzheimer's disease, breast cancer, gallbladder cancer, stomach cancer, pancreatic cancers, almost totally uterine cancers. 90% of the people that have uterine cancer, 80-90% of the people were overweight. And if they're overweight, I tell you, they were diabetic. What I encourage people, and I mentioned that at a lecture last night, is to get serum insulin. Your own blood insulin will be elevated 10 to 15 years before the blood sugar goes up. A serum insulin over 12 means you're on the path to diabetes. Now, your blood sugar may not be up, and you may feel great, but they found is that people who died from an accident at autopsies, that they already had vascular changes in their body, beginning of cancers in their body already before your blood sugar was up. Get a serum insulin. Fasting, got to be under 11. That's a good thing to remember. That's known by the medical community. They know it. It's in books. It's in many books, but they don't pass the information out because the money's.
So ask your doctor for a serum.
The money is
insulin
made
test?
to be, The money is to be made of sick people, and they even have diabetic centers inside hospitals. And I visit them. They will give you a pill how to maintain it, but they don't tell you how to get rid of it. But you can get rid of type 2 diabetes month or two?
There are, in diabetic centers, there is an education wing, and people can go and learn about how to eat and things like that. So it looks like a human tendency to go for a quick fix.
Right.
So fundamentally, we have to educate children, next generation, very early on, that the soil matters and soil need to be taken care of. That education need to come very early on so that they know how to monitor their health, how to take care of their health, and not come to the disease and then try to find the cure. So essentially, one important element here is we are educating people on technology, a different type of making a living, but we don't educate as much on how to live.
I think that's a big one. I mean, how do you do it? How are you going to teach children what to eat when the parents have bad habits, for example? But you know, I've been thinking maybe a good way would be to look at dentition. Look at their teeth. Bacteria hang out in your gums and your teeth and destroy the enamel, and they turn the teeth black because there's a lot of sugar there.
Right.
So maybe to show children pictures is like if you look at the 1500, look for Queen Victoria or Elizabeth, I forget who it is. You see in a beautiful queen's gown, gorgeous, but she's smiling, no teeth. But it was the kings and queens who could afford sugar in those years. As we had slavery to make sugar cheaper, but maybe to teach children. I pay for ads in the Ink Spot, a newspaper in town. In my next one, since I'm seeing it on TV, I think it will happen. I just told my graphic artist I want to use a lot of kids today don't smile. Why don't they smile? Because they're missing a few teeth. Now that might be visually that we could change people. If we could teach children about the bacteria in the teeth, and for one thing too, just from our standpoint, those bacteria in our teeth, even as adults, they can go to the brain because it's close. They can go down to the heart, infect the heart valve. So good dental dentition could be huge. You know, and let the dentist tell us what it should be, but I don't see advertisements on TV much on what is good dental care. Maybe the government should do it, because that could be huge gains, because a lot of dementia is due to bad dental disease, a lot of heart disease is due to bad dental disease. People don't know that, but if you read the right books, like I do, 2,000 in my basement, okay? I've read those books. Argue with me, but you're going to have to face 2,000 books, and you've seen them. You've seen them. Matter of fact, when the Indian doctors came by and they saw my 2,000 books in the basement, they said, "You're the right guy." And I do it because, you know, I'm a doctor. So to avoid growth factors in cancers, you know, are important. And you get a pleasure to us that in 2 months that you've followed some of these books. He has an excellent book. You can look at his YouTube shows too, Jason Fung, The Cancer Code. He also has written one called The Diabetes Code, The Obesity Code, The Cancer Code. He fully understands, and he speaks about fasting too, a lot. But I would say that one, I like the 16-8. He may speak about missing a few days, maybe even a week. No, I don't want you to do anything complicated. Just very simple. 16-8 is easy. I do it. I weigh 132 pounds at age 39 for the 48th time. All my blood work is normal. Am I bragging? Yeah, I'm bragging. I'm bragging to show you that you can do it. I'm just an ordinary guy, just an ordinary guy. So, and the main reason is being to keep that sugar, keep that insulin level low, because it makes things grow.
It made this grow, doctor.
Yes, and it did. And And I don't hold you necessarily responsible. We doctors have not educated you. The school system doesn't educate you. Go online and look at the school lunches they're feeding your kids. Right now, and I really thank the spirit of the universe, because down the street from me is an orphanage where a lady has adopted 14 disabled children of all racial groups, and I've been meeting with her for a few weeks now, and presented to her different books to read, and I like one of which I mentioned to you now is Susan Ryan's book, Simply Keto. Especially if you're overweight, you don't have to be overweight, but she has pictures of the recipes, desserts, and hers, and there is 3 meals a day, and that's fine, but as long as it's the right food. She'd tell you how many calories, how much protein, everything. It's well illustrated. She explains things. She even has a half a page on fasting in there, so she even considers that. But eat 3 meals a day, but if you're doing the right food, your diabetes will go away, and your chance of getting cancer goes way down, as long as you're not smoking or drinking or some other taking drugs.
Yes.
And
the fasting is a very important dimension for protecting ourselves from cancer, because in fasting you are giving body time to cleanse itself. So it is a cleansing opportunity. When there is a food in the tummy, we are eating continually all through the day, then when there is a food in the stomach, if it is not being digested, it is like a poison. Body sees that one as a poison. So constantly going after digestion, it doesn't have time for better assimilation and excretion. Right. So when there is not better time for the excretion, then toxin level will go up in the body. So it is better to give some space for the excretion or the cleansing to happen. So the fasting facilitates that process.
If you don't, you get very sluggish and foggy head, you need a nap, all that stuff happens. If you're overeating and you're just eating the wrong things, that's what happens to me.
That's exactly correct. That's where mind is going to be now foggy. Then what happens? The decisions we make also going to be not good in many different dimensions of our life. Right. So the stress causes again to go and eat sugary foods and then fried foods. That becomes a vicious cycle. That's an excellent point.
A beautiful explanation. And fasting is so simple. For example, your body secretes 5 different hormones: growth hormone, glucagon, CCK from the belly, steroids. As you wake up in the morning, they're keeping your blood sugar, elevating your blood sugar and keeping it even. So hunger happens when the blood sugar level drops. So I'm having coffee and feeling great, which is fine in fasting. And I'm thinking the caffeine, it makes me feel good. No, the reason I feel good is the ketones. After 6 hours or so, you're now in ketone metabolism, and the ketones go to your brain and make you feel good. And I don't eat till 11 or 12. So I like the 16-8, not skipping days. But Jason Fung, you can get him on YouTube. Many great books he's written, and this one on the cancer code, revolutionary new understanding of medical mystery, and he has all these things to spoke about in this book, and you can watch him on a YouTube channel, just like you can watch my stuff, and I think it's excellent. So what's prevention? Don't smoke. That's a big one, okay? And you can kill your pets doing it. Maybe, yes, and I have seen it. I've seen the owner of the house die. He owned a big company in town. I've seen his pets, a parrot. He had a parrot living in the house. The parrot was in this little cage, and I lived there for a while, and because I had a problem with my house. And the parrot was developing a lump right here. It was cancer. The parrot was breathing in the smoke.
The secondhand smoke.
Yeah, I lived through that time where I was on airplanes, you know, they could smoke in the front and not smoke in the back, and I breathed that in. I didn't fly that much, but maybe, you know, lucky to be alive. I used to do angiograms. I was a neurosurgeon, and we used to get near the radiation ourselves because they made the residents pull some of the cassettes to do an angiogram, but I don't have it now, maybe because of good health habits. I feel lucky. Normal weight's important. You know, that's important. And to get your screening, your mammograms, your colonoscopy, that's important. But screening is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you don't have a disease like diabetes, and that you don't have it early on by getting a serum insulin under 12. Okay? Get it. It'll be elevated for your blood sugar, because people on the path to diabetes are already developing vascular disease because the insulin level is up. Insulin causes vascular disease, causes cancer. Cancer rates go up. Also, I think using a lot of skin creams, a lot of hair sprays. I know of someone that died recently, and someone I know personally quite well, and I even knew her as young as when we were at IU. She used hairsprays all the time. She has some gray hair at that time, genetic probably. I have gray hair in my 40s. I'm still alive, so some things are genetic. There's no sense for me to put sprays on it all the time. The sprays can be toxic. And she developed a type of leukemia. And I'm wondering, all the hairsprays she used, she always had a hairspray. Did that cause her blood cancer? I bet so. You know what I mean?
So in other words, you are saying exposure to environmental toxins, particularly the things that we use, if we can minimize, that is better in preventing cancer.
Even soaps that I use in my shower now, I use 3 different soaps, but the last soap I use, I buy at a health food store to get all the other soaps off me and then shower, so there are no external toxins that I'm exposed to. I don't know.
So you use a soap to rinse the other soaps away?
Yeah. And milk, alcohol. Actually, you read Whitewash by Joe Keon, a book about milk. Make up your own mind. But I tell you, they have so many growth hormones, and when the cow was born, they injected it with a hormone to make it grow 10 times the normal rate to produce more milk. And of course, all these pesticides and herbicides, they put it, and then you hand the milk for your kid to drink. What's going to happen? Childhood cancers increase in milk drinkers. Type 1 diabetes, where the pancreas is destroyed, increase because of the hormones, the decrease in the protein in milk and the growth hormones. So cancer rates increase.
Is there a safe type to drink?
You give the infant cow growth hormone, and you give the milk to your kid. What do you think you're giving to your kid?
You're gonna grow.
Tall people, incidentally, have a higher rate of cancer than smaller people.
What kind of substitute for milk can you drink?
What?
What's a substitute for regular milk?
Well, maybe I wouldn't drink any. I don't drink any.
Okay.
But almond milk, I think, is fairly safe. Some of those milks are okay, but I don't feel that I need any milk. So another one is avoid obesity, type 2 diabetes, weight loss surgery, which does reduce cancer rates, but then they found out 6 months later the colon cancer rate doubled.
Wow.
So if you decide to have weight loss surgery, you better have that doctor explain to you, which they may or may not. Okay. But thanks, guys, for joining me in this venture together. You need to gather more information, look at the positive aspect, positive thinking, and worry about cancer prevention and not just the treatment. And because the prevention will keep you the healthiest and you'll avoid other diseases. And you can look at YouTube, Rudy Kachmann, Facebook, Rudy Kachmann, Amazon, Rudy Kachmann. And we will keep on posting more YouTube shows, and to keep you alive, I want you to play pickleball with me when you reach 100. We three of us did this because we love you. And look at all the information. And namaste. See you next
Namaste.
time.